Greetings, students. Today, we'll be discussing the political movements for democracy in the then East Pakistan. We'll talk about the struggles for our rights over the 2 decades, the 2.5 decades of Pakistan's existence. So this is lecture 8. We'll be talking about dictatorship and struggles for democracy from 47 to 1971. And as I said when I started, that we have a long history of struggles for our democratic rights, actually even going back to the British period. But now we focus specifically from 47 to 71. Struggles for democracy, struggles for our national rights, struggle for our identity. And these are the basic objectives of this presentation. As you all know, of course, that West Pakistan and East Pakistan was separated by nearly 1,000 miles of Indian territory. We had various ethnic differences, cultural differences, language differences. The only thing that bound us together was religion. But from the previous 2 classes, the previous 2 lectures, we realized how religion did not stop West Pakistanis from exploiting, from oppressing their Muslim brothers in East Pakistan. Religion was never a good reason there to provide for equality. It was very much the narrow interests of the West Pakistani ruling elite that dominated the economic, cultural, and political spheres of Pakistan. Today, we'll be talking about the political sphere. So, at the beginning, as we said, Pakistan was based on religious nationalism. In East Pakistan, the reason why we supported the creation of Pakistan in 47 was our fear of domination of the Hindu Raj. Because in the past, we had seen how Hindus dominated the economy as zamindars, as traders, as moneylenders. And we thought now things would be different with Muslims coming together. As we mentioned in the last class and in the other classes, that there was disparity, not only through economics, but also in terms of the civil bureaucracy, high Muslim officers in the Pakistan Army, senior officers, only 1 Bengali, 133 went to West Pakistan. Disparity in the military, Bengalis constituted less than 3% of the army. And we said even in the last class how it was wealthy Muslim traders that settled in West Pakistan and became West Pakistanis rather than coming here. So it all started just a few months after Pakistan became independent, when Muhammad Ali Jinnah came to Dhaka in March. So that's roughly, 7 months after Pakistan was created? And he announced Urdu and Urdu alone will be the national language of Pakistan. Very clearly, up to that point, people were excited about the new Pakistan. But then suddenly they realized something is wrong. Why would Jinnah call for Urdu being the national language when Urdu was the language of minorities? And in any case, Bengalis were in the majority, and the Bengali language was spoken by the majority of Bengalis. Not that we wanted Bengali to be the only national language, but we wanted it to be one of the national languages. And Jinnah immediately denied that because he felt, as the Pakistan Muslim League did, as did a few people in East Pakistan too, because the East Pakistan Muslim League did not come from grassroots Bengalis. They did not represent the peasantry of the common people. They too were, for the most part, an Urdu-speaking Nawab elite. So Muhammad Ali Jinnah and the Muslim League felt that in order to have a united Pakistan, we need to come close together through every bond we can establish, language being one. And since Bengali, they felt, was based on Sanskrit, they felt was closer to Hinduism, they felt Urdu, being written by Arabic script, was more Muslim. So this is what Muhammad Ali Jinnah said and announced. It was from that time on that people in East Pakistan started realizing maybe Pakistan isn't the dream that we thought it would be. So the language movement started, 48 to 52. Finally, in 1952, there was massive police firing. Many were killed, students were killed. This is a demonstration of students from there in front of Dhaka Medical College. This is demonstrations during the language movement, wanting Matri-bhasha 21 February, because on the 21st of February, in the firing, police firing, students were killed, other people were killed too. Since then, we've always remembered and memorialized 21st February as the Language Movement Day, as the beginning of our struggle for nationalism. And you heard a lot about that in the previous lecture. In 1954, there was the first election in East Pakistan based on universal adult franchise, implying every adult voted for the elections. Up to that point, the Muslim League dominated. Well, 47, because there hadn't been any elections since 47. The Bengalis united in a united front to contest the Muslim League, because they realized, remember from 48 onwards, the Muslim League was not representing our interests. So the united front, comprised of Krishak Koja Party and Awami League and a few others, they set out a 21-point demand that included the recognition of Bangla, free and universal education, economic and social rights of industrial workers, nationalization of jute industry, and the army headquarters could be in West Pakistan, but the naval headquarters should be in East Pakistan. Remember in last class we talked about the 6 points? So see, a lot of this actually emerged from the 21-point demand during the United Front. In Bangla, it was referred to as the Jukto Front. So the elections happened under the leadership of Fazul Haq, Maulana Abdul Hamid Khan Bhashani, and Hussein Shahid Soharwardi. The Jukto Front won in the elections. The Jukto Front won by a huge majority. Muslim League received only a few seats. But in a few months, the Jukto Front government, which was a representation of Bengali national ethos, that was dismissed by the Governor General Ghulam Muhammad from West Pakistan. So the central government was still dominated by the West Pakistanis. And they just said, we are going to dissolve this government, did not allow it to function. Another thing that was happening in Pakistan that's important is a lot of instability in government, changes in government happening, coups, not military coup, but what we refer to as constitutional coup. So 1953, for example, Ghulam Muhammad, who was the Governor General, we don't have Governor Generals now, but he was like the president. This was under British Dominion, you had Governor Generals. So he was the one with all the power. So he dismissed the Prime Minister, Khaja Nazimuddin, from East Pakistan, because he could not control the East Pakistan demands for autonomy. And Ghulam Muhammad established direct rule over East Pakistan. Khaja Nazimuddin, remember, was a Muslim leaguer. He supported Muslim League and he supported the Pakistan government, but his government too was dismissed by Ghulam Muhammad. October 1954, a constituent assembly had been set up to decide on what the constitution would be for Pakistan. Ghulam Muhammad and the Pakistan central government and the ruling elite was not happy with it, so they dissolved it. July 1955, the second constituent assembly was convened. And in August 1955, Chaudhry Muhammad Ali became prime minister. In September 1955, Iskandar Mirza became the governor general instead of Ghulam Muhammad. Ghulam Muhammad was very ill, very sick, so he took over. In March 1956, Iskandar Mirza declared a new constitution for Pakistan and called it the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. In September 1956, Sarwardi became the Prime Minister of Pakistan because of the votes and the parliamentary seats that they had. But then, in October 1957, in a year, Sarwardi was removed as Prime Minister. In October, a year later, October 7, 1958, Iskandar Mirza imposes martial law and asks General Ayub Khan to be in charge as Chief Martial Law Administrator. In 20 days, Ayub Khan removes Iskandar Mirza and proclaims himself the ruler, the president of Pakistan. The reason why we said this, and you don't need to memorize this at all, don't need to know the dates, but just the turmoil in terms of governance in Pakistan. Compare that to India. In India, Jawaharlal Nehru became prime minister at the eve of independence in 1947, 15th August in India, and he continued till his death in 1964. And Congress stayed in power, but ruled so that there would be very few oppositions to it, because they also accepted a certain vision, a sort of a socialist India, a democratic India. But, so the idea for this slide is to point to all the turmoil in governance and removal of prime ministers at will. So, 56 Constitution, let's look at that a little bit. Remember, we said Iskandar Mirza declared the first Constitution of Pakistan in 56. And we said that it would be the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. They also said it would be a parliamentary form of government with 300 members divided equally between East Pakistan and West Pakistan. Now, we were in the majority. East Pakistan had 56% of the population. So it wasn't representative of our population dominance. Even though we had a majority of the population, we received the same number of seats in parliament as the West. But at least Bengali was recognized as one of the state languages. They finally gave it and recognized Bengali. So October 1958, we said Ayub Khan became, General Ayub Khan became the president of Pakistan. He, well, military dictator. He proclaimed himself field marshal. Nowhere in the history of the world, a field marshal is a 5-star general. So you have major general, lieutenant, brigadier, 1-star general, major general, then lieutenant general, then full general, and then you have field marshal. And you become a field marshal only when you are directing a huge theater of war. So in the African war in World War II, you had Field Marshal Montgomery on the side of the British, and you had Field Marshal Rommel on the side of Germans. It's a huge big thing. Ayub Khan was not fighting a war or anything, I think then it would be one country versus another, not a huge multi-country theater. He claimed himself Field Marshal. Since then, everybody in Pakistan would refer him as Field Marshal Muhammad Ayub Khan. So the Ayub era, 58, martial law was declared to stop the elections in 1959. In 1959, they were supposed to have an election. Ayub Khan stopped that because he was afraid that even though equal number of seats, the Bengalis would dominate, and he stopped that. So 58 to 62 Ayub Khan ruled through this Punjabi-dominated military and the civil bureaucracy. In fact, later actually in the next class, we will talk about the military bureaucratic state of Pakistan. Because the state of Pakistan wasn't necessarily civilian-led one, it was military and the bureaucracy that ruled. So Ayub ruled through the Punjabi-dominated military bureaucratic state apparatus. In 1962, Ayub Khan announced a new constitution where he said elections would be held under basic democracy. This was indirect democracy. So Ayub Khan maintained that people in Pakistan are too illiterate, so they would not know who to vote for. So they would vote for their own representatives, 80,000. 40,000 in East Pakistan, 40,000 in West Pakistan. Again, on the basis of that equality, not on the basis of population representation. So people are illiterate, they would vote for representatives, basic Democrats. And the basic Democrats in turn would vote for Ayub Khan. And what Ayub Khan realized is he could not trust the people to vote for him, but 80,000 Democrats, he could buy them. He could give them patronage. He could give them right to distribute relief. He could give them government funding to do development projects, but basically to pocket them. He could give them motorbikes and other things. Basically easier to control 80,000. And the basic Democrats would realize that their authority and their wealth stemmed from voting Ayub Khan in, because anybody else coming in would get rid of the basic democracy system. So Ayub Khan started the basic democracy movement, and in fact in 1964-65, in the elections, where there was a combined opposition party, all oppositions combined together, and they put up Muhammad Ali Jinnah's sister, Miss Fatima Jinnah, as the candidate, but she lost because of the basic democracy. I still remember the elections. Ayub Khan's symbol was flower, rose, and Fatima Jinnah, the combined opposition party's symbol was lantern. But anyway, Ayub Khan won in the 64-65 elections. Now, some of the movements. Of course, the language movement was there. We talked about it. The next major movement was the SM Sharif Education Commission publishing its report. Let's stop for a bit and come back to that in a few seconds.